Hello, welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton,
And I'm Bob Scarborough.
and we are
Uh,
the FAIRtax guys. Oh man, you covered yourself up good with your banner that time.
I think there needs to be I just thought of this. There needs to be a hat made like this.
Oh mercy! If
Pretend
you're
it's
if you're
a tax chef.
Yes, if you're listening on the radio station or one of the audio only podcasts, you must go to the video version here on our Rumble archive or our YouTube channel archive and see Mr. Scarborough with his scrolling banner chef's hat. I don't think I've ever seen that used in that manner before. I got to give you credit for coming up with something original there.
Um, People would actually look. It's almost like Lady Liberty, but it's the fair tax guy. With the torch and the whole nine yards. Bill
Yeah,
and such. And the thing about it is, you can have fun talking to people about the fair tax. Folks are always talking about taxes and how difficult it is to navigate the tax code. And we have a solution that is, as the banner says, simple, efficient, and visible. And so you owe it to yourself, if this is your first time watching, or even not, you need to do something special over the next several months, because it is an election year. You need to talk to your congressmen and your senators, but you also need to remind your friends that there is a better way. And we got a lot of pressure on us right now financially because of sustained inflation, grocery prices. I did see a drop in fuel costs. That's got a lot to do with the end of summer, and the summer blends are not being produced in the oil refineries. So naturally, the cost of fuel goes down a little bit this time of year. But we do have a considerably nasty hanging on of this inflation, where fast food, anywhere you go to eat, the places that you buy things, clothing and all like that,
yes,
tied to that persistent inflation.
yes.
There's a way to help fix that,
Yes.
and it is.
I will take out a mortgage, and we will still go to Mr. Barbecue for lunch when we come up there. And again, for those of you who have not heard, on an annual basis, once a year, I will fly up from Florida there to WTOB in Winston-Salem. And we do our FAIRtax Power Radio show live on the radio station that morning. This will be Sunday, October 20th. This will be doing this. We're on at 8 a.m. Of course, if you're listening over the air or if you're listening to one of the internet streams, we'll give you a phone number at that point. You can call up, and we'd love to talk to you live on the air on WTOB on October 20th. Then we'll go to Mr. Barbecue the next day. And of course, we're going to video that session there at the radio station and play that back as one of our regular shows on the YouTube and the Facebook channels we normally go on. But that's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to doing that.
Oh, let me add one thing. We might end up videotaping the meeting that we have at Mr. Barbecue too. At least a couple of pictures, wouldn't you say?
Well, we may throw in a couple of still shots, and
Yeah.
we'll see what we can do. But I'll tell you what. But it's time to get going here on
Yes,
FAIRtax
sir.
Power Radio. And unfortunately, well, maybe fortunately for folks,
Yeah,
Congress is not been in session for a while, so there has actually been very little activity on Congress.gov since the last time we looked. Because
that's a
what
good
we do
thing.
here. Yeah, what we do here every week is we put the words Internal Revenue Code in quotes in the search function there at the Congress.gov page. Select the current congressional session, the 118th Congress, and look at only legislation. There's all kinds of stuff. And when you do that, as of the day we're recording this, you get, scroll up to the top of the page so I can see it, 1,920 hits, but there are only 3 new ones since the last time we looked. And we'll go through those real quick. HR 9431 to amend the Internal Revenue Code to exclude from gross income the discharge of indebtedness of certain individuals who are unlawfully or wrongfully detained abroad. So there we go. If you're found yourself rotting in an Iranian jail for some reason, and for your tax liability is forgiven for you, whatever that is not considered gross income. A lot of times, when you are forgiven a debt, that is considered income by the IRS, and they want you to report that. But if this is Representative Bacon from Nebraska, if that becomes law, we will exclude from gross income the discharge of indebtedness of certain individuals who are unlawfully or wrongfully detained abroad. So again, the tax code is just full of these exclude from gross income kind of things. And again, I'm reminded when we talked to our professor friend, that our economics professor, David Kendall, he was saying the biggest problem with an income tax is defining what income is. And so there we go. Next one, H.R. 9411, to amend the Internal Revenue Code to create an above-the-line deduction for certain homeowners' insurance premiums. That's from here in Florida, Representative Bill Ruckus. And not much you can say about that one. And the last one that has been introduced since the last time we met was to amend the Internal Revenue Code to reform health provisions and other purposes. That's H.R. 9394. And with Congress not in session, that's just about all we got for this Congress.gov section. We probably won't have anything at all next week, but that'll give us some more. Okay, let's tease this a little bit. Next week, we have been talking here on FAIRtax Power Radio for the past little season. We need to get back and look at your favorite piece of reading material, Publication 17. Right. We are going to do that. We're going to crack open Publication 17 for the 2023 tax season. That's the most recent one that they've got one published for, and see what's still in there. And I bet our favorite provision is still there, but we will let that go till next week.
That's right.
Time to crack open a cold cheer wine here. There we go. Splattered on my keyboard.
That's not good.
And we are ready to rock and roll. Several months ago or several weeks ago, we were in the middle of a series. I think it took us 11 episodes to go through chapter by chapter through the original Bortz and Linder FAIRtax book. During that time, you found a really interesting article and sent it to us. So I've had this, and we've had this in our email for a couple of months, but just now getting around to it. It's from the National Taxpayers Union. And the thing that really strikes me about that is when you think of the word union, you think of organized labor. And the reason that labor unions became, into existence to begin with was because workers, railroad workers, factory workers, coal miners, folks like that, they were having to work under just some absolutely brutal conditions and getting very little in return for their labor. And so they finally said, we're going to band together and see if we can get some better working conditions and, better benefits and better pay and like that. That's where a union is born, because people are being oppressed and not treated properly. So I would think that the very existence of a National Taxpayers Union is indicative of the fact that we, the American taxpayers, are getting screwed by the Internal Revenue Code. There is all kinds of stuff in there, and the Congress critters that write the code are always, treating the American taxpayer as if we are just a bottomless artesian well of cash. That they just look at us as, oh, there's more money we could get. And so this National Taxpayers Union organized itself and came into existence for the sole purpose of looking after the interests of the American taxpayer. And we're looking at a page off their website called Rates Congress for the 118th Congress first session. And they say every year the NTU rates U.S. representatives and senators on their actual votes, every vote that affects taxes, spending, and debt. And they say they're not really into the ratings game and focusing only a handful of things, that they are the fairest and most accurate guide available. They have no partisan axe to grind. All members of Congress are treated the same. And so what they do, they go through and they look at all of the voting records of all of the representatives and the senators on issues, regarding taxes and spending and debt, and give everybody a score. And if you scroll down to the bottom of this thing, it'll explain what the scores are. It says that believes a score of A indicates the member is one of the strongest supporters of responsible tax and spending policies, and those folks are called the taxpayer's friend. Grade B is a good voting record on controlling spending. B indicates a member voted for taxpayers' interest most of the time, slightly less than those who attain the A grade. C is minimally acceptable. D is you got a problem, and F means you are a big spender and then some. So they had
Yeah.
just so that's how they do this. Now nobody gets 100. They say nobody has ever scored a perfect 100. That means you did not miss a single vote in the decades-long history of the scoring system. No one has ever scored 100, and I don't think anybody's probably ever scored a 0 either. But he says a high score does not mean the member of Congress was opposed to all spending or all programs. High scoring members have indicated they would vote for many programs if the amount of spending were lower, or if that spending were offset by cuts elsewhere. So they've got their little algorithm. I'm not sure that we could completely go through how it all works, but they look at all of the votes of both senators and representatives and give people a grade on how strong a support they are in favor of doing what's right by the American taxpayers. Of course, there's 435 members of Congress and 100 senators. We're not going to go through all of everybody's grades, but it's funny. You can look at the grades. They're presented by state. By each state, they'll show all of the representatives and senators from that state. And there are very few middle grades. You got a good number of A's and B's, and you got a good number of F's, which I think
Yes.
just kind of shows the partisan difference. And again, we're not trying to be partisan. The fair tax is not a partisan issue, but you can practically look at this thing and kind of know which side of the aisle these guys are on. But I thought it was interesting as we continue here on Fair Tax Power Radio to look at all of the fair tax co-sponsors. There's I think 26 co-sponsors, and of course Buddy Carter, the original sponsor. So we've
Yes.
dug up all of the co-sponsors and just saw what their National Taxpayers Union grade was. So if you would like to leave that off, we can go through all of these. There's not too many, 20 some of these, rather than all 535 members of Congress. But the idea is to show that people who are supporting the fair tax in general are pretty good friends of the American taxpayer.
Yes, that's exactly right. Buddy Carter, of course, the main sponsor of HR 25, First District in Georgia, gets a B grade, 77. He's sort of right in the middle. The B grade, if you go to the website, ntu.org and /rate Congress, all one string, you'll be able to find out what that rating is, what that particular rating is. And the other thing too here, Bob, before we get into our side, there is a Rates Congress section where you can type in the name of your representative and whether or not they're in the House or the Senate in the state, and you can find out exactly where they stand in the scoring.
Mm-hmm.
It's a rather unique navigational tool that you can very quickly find out and encourage your representative for you. I just typed in, I'll just give as an example Virginia Fox, who is my House representative here in North Carolina, and scrolling down and getting the information, hit North Carolina House Legislator Fox. And she's on the list here too, but she has a 79% score. And you can click on further into the detail and see historical data based on years. And for example, she started out in 2005 with a 70% or A rating. Then she went to B plus and A's most of the time, and B pluses. And here's a C plus in 2022, which was a 70. And that was the first time that she dropped out of the A and B rating. So you can sort of see where your representatives are going. And when you get in touch with them through their local office, or you see them on the campaign trail somewhere, you can say, I was concerned about you a couple of years ago, but you seem to be doing pretty good for the taxpayers right now. If you'd like to do even better, we'd like to have you as part of the co-sponsors of HR 25, the fair tax. So now let's go
Indeed.
on.
I say, yeah, but of course, all the point here, all of this goes away with the fair tax. The Congress critters, we look at them on Congress.gov all the time. We like to say that we're the only ones that are watching them. Apparently, that's not, of course, we know that's not entirely true. The National Taxpayers Union here is watching them as well and giving everybody a score. But let's continue on down the list. And this is just this is in the order that the co-sponsors were listed under HR 25 on Congress.gov. So it's not alphabetical. It's not by state. It's just kind of by the date that they signed on as co-sponsor. And Andrew Clyde from Georgia District 9 is second on the list. He gets an A. He had an 87% score for the National Taxpayers Union. So he qualifies for the Taxpayers Friend Award. He's not trying to be a big spender. He's trying to look out for the wallets of the American taxpayer. Kudos here to Andrew Clyde.
Yeah, not bad. From South Carolina District 3, Jeff Duncan, co-sponsor of HR 25, gets an A with a 90% score from the National Taxpayers Union. Not bad.
All right, and almost my representative. I am just outside of her district. But you hear a lot about Kat Kavik in the news. She has a way of attracting some media attention. Florida District 3, she is rated at 85%. That is a B plus from the National Taxpayers Union as far as being a friend to us. So Kat Kavik, who I generally like pretty well, now that's a pretty good grade, B plus 85 for her.
If you're into numbers, again, ntu.org/rate Congress is the page that we're working off of. You can drill into your legislators' scoring history and find out exactly where they land legislatively speaking with regard to watching out for our tax dollars. It'll take a second to get to it, but you can really get some interesting historical data and see, pairing that up with where the wind is blowing in Washington, the political winds, and whether or not somebody sets their sail to help us or is more in line with, cutting along with whichever way the wind is blowing. I find that interesting, to say the least. So we talked about Kat, we talked about Jeff Duncan. Scott Perry from Pennsylvania District 10 scores an A with a 91% rating from the National Taxpayers Union.
Oh, yes, and Bob Good, who I believe was defeated in the primary in his reelection bill. But Bob Good is still currently in Congress representing District 5 in Virginia. He also scored a 91, so that's an A for him. You get to give a special kudo to the next guy on the list here.
That's right. With the highest score from Kentucky District 4, Thomas Massey, representative there with a score of 96. 96. Now, what I was going to do while you give the next one out, 96 is about as close to 100 as you can get.
Yep.
Without blowing the top off of that needle. So I'm looking for Kentucky, Massey, House. That's interesting. It gives no result for his going, as he must be new. This must be his first year. Maybe I've got his. I do. I spelled his name wrong. So that's why. Mercy. Thomas Massey, 96%. Now, this is all the way through 2023, doesn't include this year. Now, here's his grade all the way back to 2013, an A rating, starting out with an 89, B plus twice back in 2017 and 2022. But for the most part, he's up there. He's upper 80s to low to mid 90s all the way through today. So consistency there is a strong suit when you are working for the taxpayer. And there's a way to really get these folks across the finish line in terms of scoring. Could you imagine what the National Taxpayers Union would be able to do with someone like Representative Massey and say, congratulations, you have helped us defeat the Internal Revenue Service. And even though that's not the National Taxpayers Union's goal, it is ours. Here's Thomas Massey doing a fantastic job in Kentucky District 4. 96%, the highest score.
All righty, we got about 8 minutes left of the program here, so we got to scoot on through the list. What we're doing is we are looking at all of the representatives who sponsor or co-sponsor HR 25 in the House, all the fair tax supporters, and seeing whether they, just how friendly they are overall toward the American taxpayer, as determined by the National Taxpayers Union. Ralph Norman, South Carolina District 5, is next. He gets an A. He's an 89.
Bill Posey from Florida District 8 gets an A at 87%.
And go to Alabama District 6, Gary Palmer. He is a B, according to the National Taxpayers Union, as far as being a friend of the taxpayer. He got an 80% score.
Jim Banks from Indiana District 3's got a B plus with 83%. I wonder if there are any red marks on any of these B plus papers, like study harder or do better, like you get in school, when you got your grade back. It was a mark on
Oh,
there.
I don't know. I was looking at something last night, crazy answers that kids have given to test results on actual answers on actual tests. And there were some of that's not what we're dealing with here, but that was funny. But where are we? Barry Loudermilk is the next one, Georgia District 11. He's also a B plus at an 82.
John Carter, District 31 in Texas, got a C plus at 71%.
And back here in Florida, Gus Bilirakis in District 12 in Florida is a B, according to the National Taxpayers Union. His is an 80% score.
And Matt Gates from Florida District 1 with an 81. That's a B also.
And a name that some people, I'm sure, are going to recognize, Marjorie Taylor Greene, one of the most visible fair tax supporters out there, representing Georgia District 14. She's an A, 90%, according to the National Taxpayers Union, for being a friend to the American taxpayer and not wanting to dig into our wallets too deep.
And that's a good thing, especially with the income tax. Now, what are all these politicians going to do when we end up having the fair tax be the law of the land? That's a question that we should ask them, is how do you plan on acting without being able to use a tax code anymore?
Well,
now I've gotten the great honor of representing, giving you the highest score, and now I get to give you the lowest score. John Rutherford, Florida District 5, got a 65, which is a C by the National Taxpayers Union qualifications.
Now that is the lowest score among fair tax co-sponsors. There are quite a number of people in Congress that have gotten a big fat F from the NTU because they just vote for every spending bill. They vote for every tax increase. They again, they're just looking at the taxpayers as an endless supply of cash. But we're looking specifically at just the fair tax co-sponsors here. Warren Davidson, Ohio 8, is next on the list. He gets an A with a 90 grade.
Florida District 19, Representative Byron Donalds has a 90 with an A rating with the National Taxpayers Union.
Yeah, we had to work on him to sign on to the fair tax, but we finally got him. And of course, he's another very visible guy. You'll see the media talking to him a lot on various different issues. But Byron Donalds is a pretty good old guy there. He's got a 90 and an A grade for the National Taxpayers Union. Back to the state of Georgia, District 10, Mike Collins, another A. It's an 89 for him.
Barry Moore from Alabama District 2 got an 88 with a A rating. Not bad.
And Missouri District 7, Eric Burleson, that's also an 88A.
Tim Wahlberg from Michigan District 5 with a C plus and a 69% rating from the National Taxpayers Union. These are sponsors, co-sponsors of the fair tax. And here we go with the North Carolina. We just talked about Virginia just a minute ago. Go ahead.
Yeah, Virginia Fox, North Carolina 5, 79 score. That's a B. Followed by Andy Biggs, a name that you hear a lot. Arizona District 5, he's a B plus. NTU gives him a rating of 86.
Dale Strong from Alabama District 5 with a B minus and a 73% rating from the National Taxpayers Union. These are all fair tax co-sponsors, and George Santos was a co-sponsor of the fair tax from New York District 3 until he got expelled from Congress.
Yeah, he ran into some trouble and is no longer in Congress, so we won't deal with him too much. But anyway, looking back at again just the group of FAIRtax co-sponsors, you can say that as a group, they are indeed a friend of the American taxpayer. Of the 26 folks we talked about, half of them, 13 of them, were rated as an A.
And 10 were rated as a B, and 3 got the C rating. So they'll be staying after class in summer. They'll go to summer school and get to figure out how the game works.
So at worst, according to the National Taxpayers Union, the FAIRtax co-sponsors at the bottom of the list were still considered to have satisfactory, voting records as far as being a friend to American taxpayer. And so that's pretty cool. It just kind of shows you where the FAIRtax is. And I would say that if the people who are supporting the FAIRtax are, I would say, overwhelmingly rated highly by the National Taxpayers Union as being friends to the American taxpayer, that tells you by extension that the FAIRtax itself is a very friendly thing for the American taxpayer. And all those folks that are looking out for the interest of the American taxpayers are supporting the FAIRtax. And, there's obviously that correlation there. And as we read into the final weeks of the campaign season here, if you get a chance to speak with a candidate or with your representative per se, bring up the FAIRtax. Make them sure that they understand. We were promised, when the original Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, had to make some concessions in order to win the speakership. One of them was that they're going to give the FAIRtax a vote in the House of Representatives. Well, they're just not that much time left in this particular Congress. There'll be a new Congress sworn in next January, and we haven't gotten our vote yet. So we need to lean on folks to see if we can make that happen.
Yes, that would be excellent. Fairtax.org is a website. You can go there. You can volunteer to help us get the word out. You can go to the FAIRtax store. Is it .com for the FAIRtax store?
No, .org.
.org. Okay. So fairtaxstore.org has the palm cards and the business size cards that are absolutely free. There's no shipping on anything out of the store that will help us help you to help you help us get the word out about the FAIRtax.
You want to run that by me again?
We have put the website together to help you help us, so we can help you help us and us help you. Yeah.
Keep digging, keep digging, keep digging. Okay, well, I tell you, that's going to pretty much wrap up this edition of FAIRtax Power Radio. Again, I would just note that the fact that our tax code inspired the existence of a union to look out for the people who are being mistreated by the tax code is a really, really good reason to get rid of it. Dump that bowl of spaghetti out into the trash can. Replace the income tax with the FAIRtax. This is what we're trying to do. As we have shown, the people who are supporting the FAIRtax, or at least have co-sponsored the FAIRtax, are generally rated really good friends to the American taxpayer. And that's going to be it for this edition of FAIRtax Power Radio. Thank you so much for watching, listening, and sharing the videos. That's important. And until we meet again, I'm Bob Paxton.
I'm Bob Scarborough.
We are the FAIRtax guys, reminding you the FAIRtax is the only truly fair tax, and once you understand it,
you'll demand it.
So tell me, how could I pay less taxes?
Less?
Yeah, I'm trying to get ahead, so how can I pay less?
Well, I suppose you could pay less taxes by earning less money, or you could give to charity.
How is that going to help?
Actually, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but if you know the right people, okay, or if you have a really good lawyer, you can usually get around the big ones.
If I may, under the FAIRtax, to pay less taxes, you would simply consume less. You would control how much you pay and when you pay your taxes simply by choosing what you purchase and when you purchase something.
So I could stay focused.